Why aren't we there yet? We've heard a lot of burning questions today. We each have our own burning question. This is one of mine, and I'd like to define we, there, and yet. We are working women, particularly working women in corporations. What do I mean by there? As we've heard, full equality of opportunity, access to capital, seats at the boardroom table, and seats in the C-suite. But my definition of there may be a little different because I think there needs to be as many average and incompetent women leading companies as there are average and incompetent men leading companies. It is not about the most exceptional, sophisticated, and educated women reaching the top, although that's pretty wonderful. What do I mean by yet? 40 years ago, the doors of elite educational institutions opened to women. We have many Ivy League students here, including my daughter and her friends, who I want to shout out for, who would not have had that seat over 40 years ago. It's been 40 years since women have been admitted to the professional schools, medicine, law, business, at least opportunistically in equal numbers to men. But yet, after 40 years, we're 47% of the workforce in the United States, 14% of the senior executives, and only 4%, as we heard earlier, 4.2% of CEOs. So we're not there yet. For 40 years, I've been in the workforce, graduated with an undergraduate degree in mathematics, got a job in an investment firm on Wall Street, got my graduate degree at Knight. I've had a front row seat on women in corporations for 40 years, basically 2 jobs, 2 marriages, 2 wonderful children. And I really believe I have this perspective on what is working and what is not working in the workplace. We get a lot of advice as women about what needs to happen for us to move forward. There's a lot of books written that basically it's all about us changing up our behavior. Are we playing the game right? Are we asking for it? Are we leaning in? Are we too nice? I don't get accused of that very much anymore, but I did it one time. And basically, it's all about if you as a person change up who you are, somehow that will make a difference. And that could be true. There's lots of nuggets of wisdom in these books. But if you're in a toxic environment, if you're in a corporate culture that does not support you changing up like this, a couple of kind of bad things are going to happen. You're going to lose your sense of self-confidence. And you're going to waste a lot of time. So I would like to talk more about corporate cultures and then about some behaviors and career phases that I think are important to know about, because I really think it's all about knowing where you are in your career and your aspirations, and knowing about cultures and how receptive or not they are to you at that point in your career. Calvert's an investment firm. We heard about this. Sustainable and responsible investing is our focus. I've had the benefit of a lens on women in the workplace through our investing practices because we favor companies that we developed the Model Nominating Committee Charter. You heard about earlier that we ask all the thousands of companies we invest in to adopt this charter that states that the board, through the governance committee, will interview women and minorities for all board openings, and we've had great receptivity to that. And State of California, through CalSTRS, has also picked up on that technique. So I've had this unique opportunity, but we call them C Corps because of the tax treatment, but the reality is they're He Corps. And what will really be impressive is if we could make them He and She Corps. How do you take a culture and an environment and make it work for all genders in the workplace? It's a really difficult thing to do. I have only seen one institution tackle this, and it was written up recently in the New York Times, and it wasn't a company. It was an academic institution, Harvard Business School. No surprise, womanist president is a woman, following Larry Summers. And they were unhappy with their outcomes for women in the business school. And they undertook a 3-year effort from 2010 to 2012 to completely dissect that culture, tape the classroom. Imagine if we taped meeting rooms and taped in corporations. It was a really tremendous exercise. They wanted to see where they were letting women down in their academic environment because they weren't graduating women with the same degree of success that they were graduating the men. And guess what? It worked. This was a wrenching, difficult exercise. I have yet to see a company attempt that degree of analysis. And that's what we're really going to need to perfect a corporate culture that works for all. We can do all kinds of initiatives, and they're good and they're worthy, but we need that entire exercise. Until we do that, I think it does fall back on us to have great self-awareness about our own strengths and weaknesses, who we are, where we are in our careers, and how we can work within these corporate cultures. From my point of view, there are 3 phases to a career. Meritocracy. I came out of undergraduate school, got my first job, walked in through those doors. Guess what? I got a job description, I got goals, objectives. I was measured, they were quantitative and time-bound. Any HR people know those phrases. And you do your job, you get a raise, you get a promotion. It works. For me, I was an analyst for 7 years. I had an opportunity to start a business for the company I was with in the field of pensions. I started among the first 401k programs in the industry. I was lucky and I was good, and the meritocracy worked for me. That's about 10 to 12 years of a career. And then something interesting happens. All the focus on women in careers and business, all of a sudden, and forgive me, we are well prepared for this meritocracy phase. We earn the most college degrees, 60% of college degrees, and the most PhD degrees are awarded to women in this country. It is the beginning, it's exciting, it seems like it will work forever. It doesn't. But the next phase that comes up for women in the workplace in terms of trying to help us, and we often get tried to help, is leadership. Leadership training, leadership development. Now, there's nothing wrong with focusing on leadership as an issue. I'm just concerned about the sequencing of it. And why I'm not concerned, leadership is a huge issue. Why? Only 19% of S&P 100 board seats are filled by women. The rate at which we are filling board seats with women, we will reach parity in 2070. That's because there aren't a lot of seats that open up. So this is a big issue and one that a lot of folks are working on, and Calvert works on it through its shareholder advocacy and its ownership of public companies. But even more concerning, only 8% of the highest paid positions are women. And these are the decision makers in the companies. These are the capital allocators. These are the funders. And we need to change up. So these are very, very important. But what's happening for women isn't going from meritocracy to leadership. There's something happening in the middle. There is a third phase of a career, very rarely written about. I'm calling it the messy middle. It's not the most elegant of terms, but it's hard to figure out what to call it. For me, it's where meritocracy ends and before leadership begins. And for me, that moment came in 1988. I was pregnant with my first child. Happily went in to tell my boss I was expecting a child, at which point he said to me that his wife told him that women that really loved their children stayed home with them. I laughed. He didn't. I knew that I was in a different world at that point. All of a sudden, things start to get pretty fuzzy. It's almost as if you're not in on the secret sauce. Things happen, you don't know why. You're doing the same stuff you always did in terms of meeting those goals and exceeding those goals and reaching those objectives, and you're not getting that next promotion. For some reason, it went to the guy down the hall. And it's just a very, very difficult phase in a career. And I'm not alone in feeling that, and maybe some in this room feel it as well. There is a very disturbing study out of Vanderbilt University very recently that said that 65% of women with business degrees from advanced elite institutions are out of the workforce. This is there may be reasons like staying home with family, being fed up with some of the office politics, or looking to pursue entrepreneurship, which is fantastic, starting companies. But I actually think that this is a reaction to a fairly toxic corporate culture that is very, very damaging to U.S. competitiveness. We are experiencing a brain drain that is an unintended consequence of the biases in the workplace. So this is a very vulnerable period. It was a very vulnerable period for me. It was a period where I was very confused, and I had all the same questioning of my priorities and thinking it was me. And it was at that moment I realized you had to change everything you had learned to that point about the way corporations operate. Everything. It was at that point beyond competence. It was every aspect of engagement, relationship, interaction that had nothing to do with competence. It had to do with managing difficult bosses, managing subversive subordinates, using positive politics. It was a whole new set of skills that I didn't possess. I hired a personal coach. I joined as many women's organizations in my field as I could join. You might go to Women in Technology or Women in Life Sciences. I went to the Financial Women's Association, Women's Economic Roundtable. And up to that point, I said, it's a meritocracy. I don't need necessarily the women's organizations. I mean, I'm a supporter of the Girl Scouts. I'm a supporter of a lot of good organizations, but I don't need, well, I needed it, and we still need it. This is a very vulnerable time in a career. Until corporations change up their cultures, which I said I don't see a lot of them stepping up to that, and that's a great business track for somebody to bring those kinds of analyses into companies. Until then, we are going to have to work a little bit with ourselves and how we adapt in these corporate settings. So I'd like to offer 3 pieces of advice that worked for me. Don't let anyone, when you're in that messy middle, don't let anyone fill in the blanks about who you are and what you're capable of doing. You notice that I didn't put Heather up to it, but she mentioned I was a math major. I find a way of working into every time I'm speaking to groups that I'm a math major. Why? Because women are not thought of necessarily, particularly when you're in this new setting where you're being exposed to boards and senior executives in this messy middle. Often guys, in my case, almost all guys, in financial services, you've got to fill in the blanks for them. You've got to get your resume. The best advice I ever received about this piece is repeat your resume every time you're in a group. You got to do it skillfully, and it's not bragging. It's really just filling in the blanks. So, because when the guys fill in the blanks, they're not filled in to your favor, to your benefit. The second thing is, and we've heard this too so many times, declare your life balanced. I've got to ignore all those magazine covers that say, you can have it all, you can't have it all. If you have it all, you can't have it all at the same time. It's a lot of different things. You know what? Whatever you choose as your life's path, that's balanced. A woman executive said this to me 15 years ago. I declare my life balanced. For me, my work, my family, my husband, my 2 daughters, they're my joy. They're my challenge. Both parts are a challenge. It is what I want out of my life. It is balanced. I haven't cooked a meal since my daughters were born. Who cares? I eat every night. I'm fine. I declare my life balanced. And my third piece of advice is, when you think about a career, it is not about a ladder. It's really about an obstacle course. Ladders are an image that say you got to pull people off. I can't get ahead if there's somebody ahead of you, kind of aggressive. It has been my view and image that careers are really obstacle courses. Many people can be on the course at the same time. In fact, many people can succeed at the same time. Your success doesn't impede anybody else's, and their success doesn't impede you. In fact, you can even stop to help somebody and still succeed. And if you visualize your career as an obstacle course, compassion and competition can coexist in the workplace and in your professional life. I will close with 3 just action comments. We need to make impact on behalf of ourselves, on behalf of the organizations we work for, on behalf of the world. You can have this impact. Stay informed and inform others. Support other women in whatever way you can. Challenge the culture in which you operate. Do it skillfully, but challenge it. And lastly, invest. Invest in women, invest for change, invest to make it a better world, and then you are there.
Thank you.